The war had ended days ago, but the land did not know peace. Snow covered the fields where men once screamed and steel once sang. The wind carried no sound now, only the slow whisper of falling ash. Lyra Adric moved carefully through the frozen grass, her thin boots sinking with every step. She carried a small leather bag filled with herbs and strips of cloth. Her hands were red from the cold, but she kept walking. She had seen enough death in her 20 years to know that even one life saved was worth the pain. The sun was low, a pale circle behind gray clouds. Around her, bodies lay half buried under frost. Broken swords, torn flags, and old blood marked the land. She tried not to look at their faces anymore. Still, something made her stop. A faint sound. Not a cry, but a breath, weak and uneven. Lyra turned. A few steps away, near a burnt shield, someone was alive. She rushed forward, pushing aside the snow until she saw him. A man lay on his back, armor cracked, cloak dark with blood. His skin was white as bone, lips blue, eyes closed. For a moment, she thought he was gone too, until his chest lifted slightly, as if he fought for one more breath. "Hold on," she whispered. "Please, don't leave now." She knelt beside him and pressed her hand to his neck, a slow, cold pulse. Barely there, but real. She worked quickly, tearing part of her cloak to wrap his wounds. The gash across his shoulder was deep, the kind that killed most men within hours. Yet he had lived through the night. His sword lay beside him, half buried in snow. It was unlike any she had seen. Black metal, the blade carved with strange symbols. She pushed it aside and focused on his face. He was young, maybe 25, but his features were sharper than any soldier's. A face carved in sorrow, not rage. His lips moved faintly. A whisper escaped. "The light." Lyra leaned close. "Don't speak. Save your strength." But his hand twitched, reaching toward her wrist. "The light burns." She frowned. "You're cold." "The sun can't burn through clouds." He tried to smile, but his eyes stayed closed. "Not the sun." Lyra brushed his dark hair back, tying a strip of cloth across his wound. "Rest," she said softly. "You'll be fine." I promise. She knew he wouldn't be fine. No one survived wounds like that without help from a healer's guild. And she was only a field medic. Still, she refused to give up. By sunset, the air had grown sharper. She built a small fire in a hollow near some rocks, dragging him closer to it. His body was heavy, yet he seemed lighter than he should have been, too light for his height and armor. She took a sip from her flask and poured a few drops between his lips. He didn't move. "Don't make me talk to myself all night," she said softly, almost smiling. "At least tell me your name." No answer, only the crackling fire. She sighed and looked up at the sky. "Then I'll give you one until you tell me yours." Her eyes went back to his pale face. "You look like you belong to the moon more than the earth." "Maybe. Aryan. That fits you." The name sounded strange on her tongue, but right somehow. She sat beside him, hugging her knees as night fell. The silence around them deepened, broken only by the wind. In the distance, wolves howled. She didn't sleep. She kept watch over him, feeding the fire and checking his breathing every few moments. Once, near midnight, his eyes opened slightly, silver in the dim light. "Aryan," she whispered, startled, "you're awake." His gaze met hers for a heartbeat. Then, in a voice dry and cracked, he said, "That name." She leaned closer. You heard me?" He blinked slowly. "You spoke it." "How?" Lyra smiled faintly. "I just guessed." "I didn't know it was real." He didn't answer. His eyes closed again, but she noticed the faintest tremor in his fingers. When dawn came, the fire had died to embers. Lyra rubbed her hands together, shivering. She turned to check on him, but his chest no longer rose and fell. Her heart sank. She pressed her hand to his neck again. Nothing. His skin had gone cold as the snow. "No," she whispered. "Please, no." She sat there for a long moment staring at him. She had seen death so many times before, yet this one felt different, heavier, lonelier. She couldn't explain why. After a while, she reached forward and brushed his hair back once more. His face looked peaceful now, almost calm. She thought he deserved at least a burial, not to be left for crows. She leaned close and whispered, "May the light guide you." Then, without thinking, she bent and pressed a soft kiss against his lips, a small farewell, a human goodbye. The moment she did, a sudden warmth spread through her hand where it rested on his chest. His body shuddered once, hard, and she gasped, stumbling back. His eyes opened. They weren't silver anymore. They glowed faint red beneath the shadows. Lyra froze. "You're alive." Arian's voice was deep now, no longer weak. "You shouldn't have done that." She backed away slowly, her heart racing. I was trying to help. You weren't breathing." He sat up with effort, snow sliding from his armor. His movements were smooth, almost too smooth for someone who had just risen from death. His eyes glowed brighter, then dimmed, returning to gray. "You called me by my true name," he said quietly. Lyra stared. "I didn't know it was true." "No one should know it," he murmured. "Not anymore." She took a step closer, still unsure if he was real. "You should rest." "You're hurt." He shook his head. "My wounds are gone." Lyra looked. The gash on his shoulder had vanished, leaving only a faint scar. She felt her breath catch. "That's not possible." He stood slowly, his tall frame casting a long shadow over the snow. "It shouldn't be," he said, "yet here I stand." The air around them grew colder, though the fire still burned. The wind stirred his dark cloak. For a brief moment, Lyra thought she saw something. Faint symbols glowing along his sword, the same strange markings she'd seen before. Arian turned to her. "Tell me your name." "Lyra," she said quietly. "Lyra Adric." He nodded once, as if memorizing it. "You saved me." "I found you," she said, voice shaking slightly. "But I don't understand." "You wouldn't," he said softly, looking toward the horizon. "Your world has forgotten mine." She frowned. "What are you talking about?" He looked down at her, eyes calm but distant. "You don't need to fear me, Lyra. But you should leave this place before night falls again." "Why?" His gaze turned toward the darkening forest. "Because the dead are not meant to rise, and when one does, others follow." A sound echoed across the field, faint, like footsteps crunching over frost. Then another and another. Lyra turned, fear crawling up her spine. Shadows moved among the trees. Arian drew his sword. The black metal caught the weak light, and the air itself seemed to tremble. "Stay behind me," he said quietly. "They've smelled the blood." Lyra gripped her cloak, unable to look away from the man she had tried to save. The dying soldier she kissed was no longer just a man. He was something older, something that had been waiting to wake, and now it had. Lyra stood frozen, the cold wind biting at her face. Between the trees, she saw shapes moving, slow at first, then faster. The sound of claws against frost made her chest tighten. Arian stepped in front of her, his sword glowing faintly in the dim light. The markings along the blade pulsed like a heartbeat. "Stay quiet," he whispered. Lyra nodded, her breath misting the air. Then she saw them. Dark figures crawled out from the forest, bent, pale, their eyes glowing faint blue. Their faces were human once, but twisted now, lips cracked and dry. They moved like shadows that had forgotten how to walk. Lyra whispered, "What are they?" "Remnants," Arian said, "the ones left behind when a king dies. They feed on his scent, waiting for his return." She swallowed hard. "You mean you?" His eyes stayed on the creatures. "Yes, they sense my blood again." The first of the remnants lunged forward, snarling. Arian swung his sword in a clean, fast motion. The blade cut through it easily. The body fell, turning to ash before it hit the ground. Lyra flinched, covering her mouth. More came, hissing. Arian moved like a shadow himself, swift, calm, deadly. Each strike was silent but final. He didn't look angry. He looked sad. When the last one fell, only the sound of wind remained. The snow around them was gray with ash. Lyra stepped forward slowly. They were like you? No, Arian said, lowering his sword. They were slaves of hunger. I once swore to protect them, but when I fell, they lost their minds. She stared at him. You said you were a king. I was, he answered simply, long ago. Lyra hugged her cloak around herself. Then why were you left to die on a field like this? He looked at the horizon where smoke rose from far villages. Because my own kind feared what I could become. He turned to her, his face calm again. And because the humans I tried to protect turned against me too. Lyra frowned. You protected humans? He nodded once. Before your world forgot my name. The fire behind them had burned low. Lyra's hands shook from the cold. Arian noticed and knelt near the flames, holding his palm above them. The fire grew stronger, almost as if it obeyed him. She watched in silence. You can control fire? No, he said quietly. It remembers me. She didn't know what that meant, but she stayed close to the warmth anyway. When the wind died down, Lyra asked softly, What will you do now? Arian's eyes reflected the firelight. Find the ones who ended me. And then? He hesitated. Then I decide if this world still deserves a king. Lyra looked down. And me? What happens to me now? You should go home, he said. Forget you ever found me. I can't, she said. You'd have died without me. He turned to her, eyes deep and unreadable. And now that I live, others will come for me. The church will send hunters. My old army will sense my return. If they see you with me, they'll kill you first. Lyra looked at him steadily. Then I won't stay behind. His expression changed slightly, part disbelief, part warning. You don't understand what I am. I don't care what you are, she said. I saw you dying, and I helped. If the world wants to punish me for that, let it. For a moment, he said nothing. Then he looked away. You remind me of someone. Who? A girl who once stood before me, just like you do now, he said softly. She called me her savior. But I became her curse. Lyra didn't answer. The sadness in his voice said enough. When night fell again, they found shelter in the ruins of a small chapel half buried in snow. The roof was broken, but the stone walls still stood strong. Arian placed his sword near the entrance and sat down against the wall, closing his eyes. Lyra lit a small lamp and sat across from him. Do you sleep? Not the way you do, he said without opening his eyes. I rest, but I don't dream. She watched him quietly. In the dim light, he didn't look like a monster at all. He looked tired, like someone who had carried too much for too long. Outside, the wind howled again. Lyra pulled her cloak tighter. If those creatures come again... They won't, Arian said. I ended them all. But you said others will come? He opened his eyes. They will. And not all of them will be as easy to kill. Lyra shivered. Then we should move at dawn. He gave a slow nod. You speak like someone who's seen war. I have, she said quietly. My father was a soldier. He never came home. Arian looked at her for a long moment. I'm sorry. She gave a small, tired smile. Don't be. War takes everything from everyone. They sat in silence for a while. Then softly, Lyra asked, What will you do if you find the ones who betrayed you? He didn't answer right away. The light from the lamp flickered across his face. I will ask them why, he said finally. And if their answer doesn't make sense? He looked up at the dark ceiling. Then I will end what I began. Lyra didn't ask what that meant. She could hear the weight in his tone, the kind of pain words couldn't soften. The night passed slowly. At some point, Lyra's eyes grew heavy. She leaned against the wall and drifted to sleep. When she woke at dawn, Ariane was gone. Her heart raced. She jumped to her feet, calling softly, Ariane! No answer. She ran outside into the cold morning. The snow had stopped, and the field stretched empty before her. Then she saw him, standing near the trees, his cloak moving in the wind. Relief flooded through her. She walked toward him. "You shouldn't disappear like that." He turned to her. "I was listening." "To what?" "The earth," he said. "It remembers everything, where the blood was spilled, where lies were told." She frowned, unsure what he meant, but before she could ask, Arian looked past her. His eyes narrowed. "What is it?" "Someone's coming." From the distant road, a sound of hooves echoed. Riders, Lyra turned and saw them, black-armored men carrying banners marked with the sign of the sun. Arian's face darkened. "The sanctum." "The church?" she whispered. "Yes, they've come for me." He turned toward her. "Stay behind me, no matter what happens." The riders came fast, 10 of them. When they stopped, their leader dismounted, tall, sharp-eyed, his armor shining with gold edges. "By the order of Commander Thalen Dross," the man shouted, "we search for the creature said to walk this land. Step aside, girl." Lyra froze. She looked at Orion, then back at the soldiers. "He's not a creature. He's—" "Be silent," the man barked. Arian stepped forward, his cloak brushing the snow. "Tell your commander the creature you seek still remembers his face." The soldiers lifted their weapons. The leader's eyes widened as he looked closer at Arian. "It can't be. The last king is dead." Arian smiled faintly. "Not quite." Before the leader could order an attack, Arian moved. In one blink, he was gone from sight, then reappeared behind the man, holding the edge of his sword near his throat. The soldiers froze. Lyra gasped softly. Arian spoke calmly. "Tell your commander, I don't wish for war again. But if he sends more men, I'll make the sun bleed." He lowered his blade and stepped back. The man stumbled onto his horse, fear in his eyes. Within moments, the riders turned and fled down the road. Lyra stood staring at him. "You could have killed them." "I could," he said, "but mercy is rarer now. I remember how to use it." She looked at him quietly. "And what if they come again?" "They will," he said. "And when they do, we'll be ready." He looked toward the far horizon, where the road vanished into the white mist. "There's a place I must go. The Obsidian Keep. It's where my story began, and where it must end." Lyra stepped closer. "Then I'm coming with you." Arian turned, eyes softening for the first time. "You still have a choice, Lyra. You can return home and live." She shook her head. "Home burned years ago. My only home now is the people I choose to stand with." Arian stared at her for a long time, then gave a slow nod. "Then stand with me. But know this path only ends in blood." Lyra met his gaze without fear. "Then let it be my blood too." A faint smile touched his lips, the first real one she'd seen. "You are not afraid of the dark, are you?" "No," she said. "I've lived in it all my life." Arian turned toward the northern mountains. "Then let us walk into it together." And with that, they began the long road toward the Obsidian Keep, where old shadows waited and the past refused to die. Lyra woke before the sun. The air inside the cave was cold and still. Arian was sitting near the entrance, his back straight, his eyes glowing faintly red in the shadows. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming again. He looked like a ghost, pale and beautiful, the kind that belongs to stories told around a fire. "You didn't sleep," she said softly. "I don't need to," he replied. His voice was calm, but there was something distant about it, like he was speaking from another time. Lyra wrapped her cloak around her shoulders. "You watched over me all night?" He turned his head slightly, a hint of warmth in his cold eyes. "Old habits?" "Once, I guarded thousands. Watching one isn't so hard." She smiled faintly. "Thousands?" He looked away, toward the mountains. "It doesn't matter now." Lyra stepped closer. "Arian, what are you really?" He didn't answer at once. The wind howled through the cave mouth, carrying the scent of pine and frost. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet, almost sorrowful. "I was a king," he said, "a long time ago, before the world forgot my name She stared at him. A king? He nodded slowly. I ruled from the obsidian keep, a fortress built on blood and stone. My people feared the sun, but we had our own light. Until the wars began, Lyra sat down beside him, her heart beating fast. The vampire wars? Arian looked at her surprised. You've heard of them? My mother used to tell stories, she said. She said the vampires were monsters, that they drank the blood of the living. He smiled sadly. Monsters? Perhaps we were, but humans made monsters long before we ever did. He stood and stepped into the gray morning. His breath didn't show in the cold air. I was betrayed, he said. My own soldiers sold my name to the church. They feared my strength, so they cursed me, buried me under ash and snow. I thought I would never wake again. Lyra's voice trembled. Until me. He turned to her and his eyes softened. Yes, until you. There was silence. Only the sound of the wind filled the space between them. Lyra wanted to ask more about his past, his curse, his people, but before she could, Arian tensed. His gaze moved toward the trees outside. Someone's coming, he said. Lyra froze. Who? He walked to the cave entrance, his eyes narrowing. Hunters. 3 riders appeared through the mist, soldiers in dark armor, marked with the sign of the Sanctum of Light, the same army that had burned entire villages searching for vampires. Lyra's chest tightened. We have to hide. Arian didn't move. His voice was calm. They're not here for you. But they'll kill you. He smiled faintly. They've tried before. Before she could stop him, he stepped out into the open. The riders halted when they saw him. The one in front, tall, cold, and dressed in black, removed his helmet. His face was sharp, his eyes gray and cruel. By the light, the man said, his voice deep. It can't be. Arian stood straight. Thalandros. Lyra's breath caught. The War Inquisitor. I thought you were dead, Thalen said. Arian smiled faintly. I was. Death is a poor jailer. Thalen dismounted slowly, drawing his sword. The blade glowed faintly, covered in strange runes. The last vampire king, he said. I should have known your kind wouldn't stay buried. Lyra stepped forward. Wait, please. He's not— Silence, girl, Thalen snapped. Do you know what stands beside you? That thing drained empires dry. He killed thousands. Lyra looked at Arian, searching his face. Is it true? Arian didn't speak. His eyes stayed locked on Thalen. That silence says enough, Thalen said. You were always proud, Valior. Even now, you hide behind a human's pity. Arian's voice was quiet. You don't understand, Thalen. The curse broke. I didn't choose this awakening. Thalen raised his sword. Curses, mercy, it's all the same. You're a shadow of what was, and shadows must burn. He swung his blade. Light flared. Arian moved faster than her eyes could follow. The steel struck air. Thalen stumbled back, shocked. Arian's hand had caught the blade, his palm smoking, but unbroken. You should have stayed in your temples, Arian said softly. Thalen stepped back. You can't hide forever. The Sanctum will hunt you, and her. He pointed at Lyra. Arian's expression darkened. She's under my protection. Thalen smirked. Then she's already doomed. He whistled sharply. The other riders turned their horses and disappeared into the fog. Thalen followed slowly, his eyes never leaving Arian's. When they were gone, Lyra turned to him. You should have killed him. Arian shook his head. Killing Thalen would only bring a storm. He's not alone. The Sanctum will come for us. For you? She swallowed hard. Then what do? We move, he said. There's a place where we might find answers. A ruin beneath the old mountains. It was once sacred to my kind. Maybe it still remembers. That night, they traveled under the stars. The moonlight touched Arian's face, and for the first time, Lyra saw how tired he looked. Arian, she whispered, do you ever wish you stayed asleep? He didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, before you, yes. She looked at him. And now? He met her eyes, and for a moment, the cold king was gone. Only a man remained, lost between 2 worlds. Now, I wish I had woken sooner. The journey through the mountains took days. Snow fell without end, covering their tracks and silencing the forest. Lyra had never seen such emptiness before. The world felt far away, like they were walking through a dream that refused to end. Arian moved ahead, quiet and steady, his black cloak blended with the shadows, his steps leaving no sound. Sometimes Lyra wondered if he was even touching the ground. At night, they made a small fire in hidden places. Arian never sat close to it. The flames seemed to make his skin ache. "You don't like the fire," Lyra said one night, watching him sit just beyond its light. "I don't belong in warmth," he said softly. She looked into the flames. "You talk like you're already gone." He gave a faint smile. "Maybe I am. The man I was died long ago." Lyra leaned closer. "Then why do you fight to live now?" His eyes met hers, pale red, glowing faintly like embers under ash. "Because you called me back." On the fourth day, the path ended before a cliffside of black stone. Wind rushed through cracks, sounding like whispers. "This is it," Arian said. "The path beneath the mountain." Lyra stared at the wall. "There's no door." He stepped closer, brushing away snow. Symbols carved into the rock began to shine faintly at his touch, lines and circles forming the mark of a crown. The ground trembled. Slowly, a dark opening appeared, revealing stairs leading down into the earth. Lyra took a step back. "How did you do that?" Arian didn't answer. He only said, "Stay close to me. Once we go in, the mountain will not forgive hesitation." The air inside was cold and heavy. Their footsteps echoed through a tunnel lined with old stone. Strange symbols glowed faintly on the walls, not like light, but like memory. "This place was called the Vale of Blood, long before humans came," Arian said. "My kind believed it held the first fire of our creation." Lyra looked around, her voice small. "Is it true?" He touched the stone wall. "It used to be." They kept walking until they reached a great chamber. In the center stood a broken throne carved from obsidian. Dried vines wrapped around it like chains. Arian stopped. His eyes darkened. "This was mine." Lyra turned to him. "This place?" He nodded. "The seat of my first reign." He stepped toward it slowly, his boots echoing on the cold floor. "I built this with my own hands." "Now look at it." Lyra touched one of the old vines. It crumbled into dust. "It's been a long time, Arian." He knelt before the throne, his voice low. "Time doesn't heal stone or blood." She wanted to say something comforting, but before she could, a sound came from the shadows, a whisper, soft and sharp. Lyra froze. "Did you hear that?" Arian's head lifted, his eyes glowed faintly. "Yes." From the far end of the chamber, a woman stepped out. Her dress flowed like smoke, and her hair was white as snow. Her eyes shone silver, and her face carried the sadness of centuries. Lyra stepped back. "Who is she?" Arian's voice was heavy. "Miriam." The woman smiled faintly. "You still remember my name." Lyra looked between them. "You know her?" Arian nodded slowly. "She was my oracle." The one who saw the fall before it came. Miriam walked closer, her feet barely touching the ground. "And you never listened." Arian's jaw tightened. "You told me my death would save our kind." "You lied. I told you your death was necessary," she said. "The world couldn't bear your strength." "You were too proud." Too angry, Lyra stepped forward, her voice shaking. "You cursed him?" Miriam's eyes softened as she looked at Lyra. "No, child. I mourned him. The curse was not mine. It was his own doing." Arian frowned. "What do you mean?" "You let hatred rule you," Miriam said quietly. "When you fell, your blood called to the earth itself. It buried you, waiting for something pure to wake you again." She looked at Lyra. "Something like her." Lyra's breath caught. "Me?" Miriam nodded. "Your bloodline carries the last spark of the first flame." Your compassion broke the seal. Lyra felt her heart pound. "So, I was meant to find him?" Miriam's voice was soft. "Fate is not a path. It's a mirror. You found him because you needed to. And now, you both must choose what comes next." Arian's eyes darkened. What choice? Mirren stepped closer. You can take back your full power, Aryan Valior. But it will come with a price. Her life will be the key. Lyra froze. What? Mirren turned to her. Your kiss woke him. Your blood keeps him alive. If he takes the last of it, he will return to his throne, and his curse will end. Arian's voice was rough. You expect me to kill her? Miriam's eyes glimmered. No, I expect you to decide what kind of king you wish to be this time. The chamber fell silent. Lyra's heart trembled. She looked at Arian. His face hard, unreadable, but his hands shaking. She whispered, Arian. You wouldn't. He turned to her, his voice low and breaking. I've already taken too much from this world. I won't take you too. Moraine stepped back into the shadows, her form fading like mist. The choice is yours, Aryan Valior. The mountain remembers. Choose wisely. Her voice faded, leaving only silence and the slow echo of water dripping from the ceiling. Lyra stepped closer to Aryan. What are you thinking? He didn't answer. His eyes were fixed on the broken throne. That every curse has a truth behind it. Maybe mine is that I was never meant to be saved. She reached for his hand. Then let me save you anyway. He looked at her, his face softening for the first time in hours. You already have, he whispered. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The mountain was silent except for the soft sound of their breathing. Lyra still felt the echo of Mirren's words. Her life will be the key. Arian stood beside the broken throne, his back turned to her. His shadow stretched across the cold stone floor like something alive. Finally, Lyra whispered, You're not really thinking about it, are you? He didn't answer right away. His voice came low and heavy. You don't understand what she offered. If I take back my power, the world might balance again. The wars could end. Lyra shook her head. At the cost of one life? My life? He turned, his eyes glowing faintly red in the darkness. You don't know what's at stake, Lyra. There are old forces moving again, things that wake when I do. If I stay like this, they'll destroy everything. Her heart ached. Then we'll fight them together. He smiled sadly. Together? I've walked this earth for hundreds of years. Everyone who stood beside me is gone. You'd be no different. She stepped closer, anger breaking through her fear. You think I'm afraid to die? His eyes softened. No, I think I am. Lyra stopped. The way he said it, quiet, almost broken, made her chest tighten. I don't believe that, she whispered. You're not a monster, Arian. He gave a faint, bitter smile. I was. Maybe I still am. I drank the blood of kings. I burned villages that defied me. The earth still remembers. She shook her head. The man who saved me from Thalen isn't that monster. He looked away. You don't understand what it means to carry this hunger? Every beat of your heart calls to me. Every breath tempts me. Lyra's hands trembled. Then take it. He looked at her sharply. If that's what it takes to end this curse, she said, her voice steady but her eyes wet, then take it. Don't let me be the reason your world stays broken. Arian's voice broke. Don't say that. Tears ran down her cheeks. You said it yourself. The wars won't stop unless you do something. Maybe this is the way he stepped toward her, his hand trembling as he touched her face. You don't know what you're offering. I do. He stared at her for a long time, then pulled his hand away, as if burned. No, I won't let you die for me. Lyra's voice was soft. Then what do we do, Arian? He turned toward the throne again. There's another way. If Mirren spoke true, the flame she mentioned still exists somewhere in this mountain. If we find it before Thalen's army does, maybe I can use its power without hurting you. Lyra blinked. Thalen's army? Arian nodded slowly. He won't stop. He saw what I am. He'll bring the sanctum here to finish what they started centuries ago. Lyra's heart pounded. Then we don't have much time. He gave a small nod. Stay close to me. They descended deeper into the mountain. The tunnels glowed faintly with red veins that pulsed like blood through stone. The air grew warmer, heavier. Lyra walked behind him, her lantern trembling in her hand. "Do you think Mirren will return?" "She already has," Arian said, in her own way. Every shadow in this mountain is her voice. The ground trembled slightly. In the distance, Lyra could hear the faint echo of metal, armor striking stone. "Arian," she whispered, "someone's following?" He stopped. His expression hardened. "They're faster than I thought." They ran. The tunnels twisted like veins beneath the earth. Lyra's lungs burned, but Arian never slowed. Finally, they reached a vast chamber glowing with red light. A river of molten fire ran through its center, and at the far end stood a stone altar covered in symbols. Arian stopped, staring at it. "The first flame," he whispered. Lyra's eyes widened. "It's real." He walked slowly toward the altar. "This is what Mirren spoke of. The flame that once gave life to my kind," she followed. "What will you do?" He looked at her, his face calm but sad. "Pray I don't make the same mistake again." As he placed his hand on the altar, the ground shook. The fire brightened, rising high like a storm. Lyra shielded her eyes. Then echoes of shouting, steel, the sound of men. Thalin's voice cut through the heat like a blade. "Arian, Valior, step away from the flame." Arian turned slowly. Thalin stood at the tunnel's mouth, flanked by soldiers with glowing swords. "Still chasing ghosts, Thalin?" Arian said quietly. Thalin pointed his blade. "You should have stayed buried." "The sanctum will end this tonight." Lyra moved between them. "Stop! You don't understand. He's not what you think." "Move aside, girl," Thalin ordered. "She's under my protection," Arian said, his voice deepening, echoing off the walls. "If you harm her, I'll burn this mountain to ash." Thalin sneered. "Then burn." "But she'll burn with you." He lifted his sword, and the soldiers rushed forward. Arian stepped in front of Lyra. His eyes turned red as blood. The flame behind him flared, wrapping him in light. The ground split open. The fire leapt like it was alive, swallowing the first wave of soldiers. The others fell back, shouting in terror. Thalin raised his sword, but Arian was already there, his hand closing around the blade, melting it in seconds. "You were warned," Arian said softly. Thalin's eyes widened as Arian's power surged, his voice deep, his skin glowing faintly like molten gold. The mountain roared. Then everything went black. When Lyra opened her eyes, she was lying on cold stone. The fire had gone out. Smoke filled the chamber. Arian was on his knees near the altar, his body trembling. She crawled to him. "Arian!" "Are you hurt?" He looked up at her, his eyes dim. "It's done." "The flame, it's fading." "What do you mean?" He smiled weakly. "I took its light." "Not its hunger." Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "You'll die." He shook his head slowly. "No, I'll sleep again. That's all I ever do." She grabbed his hand. "No, you can't leave me." His voice was barely a whisper. "You gave me peace, Lyra." "Something I never thought I'd feel again." She held him tightly, crying into his chest. "Please stay. Please." But his voice was fading. "Remember me when the light returns." Then his hand went still. The last vampire king fell silent once more. For a long time, Lyra didn't move. The mountain around her was quiet again, the fire gone, leaving only ash and smoke. Arian's body lay still in her arms. His skin was cold, his face peaceful, too peaceful, as if he had simply drifted into a dream. "Arian," she whispered, shaking him gently. "Please, wake up." No answer. Tears ran down her cheeks, falling onto his pale skin. The sound of her sobs filled the empty hall. "I told you not to leave me," she whispered. "You promised." Her voice broke, but then something strange happened. The ground beneath her hand grew warm. The stone glowed faintly red. She looked down. The altar, though cracked and dark, still pulsed softly, like a dying heart refusing to stop. Lyra stared at Arian's still face, then at the altar. "If this flame brought you life once," she said softly, "it can do it again." She reached out, placing her hand on the glowing stone. The heat burned her skin, but she didn't pull away. She closed her eyes, her voice trembling. Take what's left of me. Just bring him back. The light spread, wrapping her body in red fire. It didn't hurt anymore. It felt like warmth, like sunlight after a long winter. The glow covered Arian's chest, then his throat, then his lips. Slowly his fingers twitched. Lyra's breath caught. Arian. His eyes opened, faint red, weak but alive. He sat up slowly, his voice hoarse. Lyra. What did you do? She smiled faintly. Gave you the rest of the flame. He looked down, her hand still touching the altar, her skin now pale as snow. No, he said, shaking his head. No, you didn't. She smiled, her eyes heavy. It's all right. You said the world needed you. He pulled her close, his voice breaking. I needed you. Lyra's eyes fluttered, her voice barely a whisper. Then remember me. Her head rested against his chest. The light in her eyes faded. For the first time in his long life, Arian Valior cried. The red fire rose around them again, brighter than before. The whole mountain shook, and the altar split open, releasing a wave of light that carried both warmth and sorrow. When the glow faded, Lyra's body was gone. In her place, a single silver flower grew between the cracks of the stone, its petals glowing faintly with red at the edges. Arian stared at it for a long time. His voice was low and steady. You gave me back my soul. He took the flower gently, holding it close. Then he turned toward the entrance of the chamber, where the first rays of dawn touched the stone. The sun, for the first time in centuries, didn't burn him. The flame inside him had changed. He walked toward the light, his cloak dragging across the floor, his shadow fading as he stepped outside. The snow on the mountains glowed faintly red as he passed. Days later, rumors spread across Arendor. Travelers spoke of a pale man walking alone across the frozen plains, his eyes sad, his hands always holding a small silver flower. Some said he was a lost spirit searching for someone he loved. Others said he was a king who had traded his crown for peace. But those who met his gaze for even a second said they felt warmth in their hearts, like a memory of someone kind. Far beneath the mountain, where the old flame had once burned, a voice whispered softly through the darkness, not all endings are death. Some are just beginnings. And for a brief moment, the stone walls glowed again, the faint outline of a woman's shadow smiling through the light. Snow stretched for miles around him, soft and endless. The wind howled through the peaks, but Arian didn't feel the cold anymore. He walked with quiet steps, the silver flower safe in his hand, wrapped in a piece of his cloak. Each time he looked at it, he felt the same ache in his chest. Grief, love, and something he had never known before, peace. Days passed. He crossed rivers that had frozen mid-flow, valleys covered in mist, and villages too scared to speak his name. But he never stopped walking. Sometimes when he passed through small towns, people stared at him, not out of fear, but with quiet wonder. Their fires burned brighter after he left. Their sick healed faster. Children said they dreamed of a girl with warm eyes and a red light around her. He knew it was her, Lyra's spirit, still near him, still guiding him. One evening, as the sky turned deep blue, Arian stopped by a small inn at the edge of a village. He didn't go inside. He never did. He sat outside beneath a bare tree, staring at the snow-covered hills. A soft voice broke the silence. You look lost, stranger. He turned. A young woman stood there, wrapped in a simple cloak, her hair golden under the moonlight. I've been lost for a long time, Arian said quietly. She smiled gently. Then you're just like everyone else here. Her name was Era, the innkeeper's daughter. She brought him warm bread and tea, even though he didn't eat. She sat beside him anyway. You don't talk much, she said after a while. I've said too many words in my life, he replied. Silence feels kinder now. Era looked at the silver flower in his hand. That's beautiful. Where did you find it? He stared at it for a long moment before saying, It found me. She smiled softly. not asking more. That night, while the village slept, Ariane looked up at the sky. The stars shimmered above the clouds, brighter than he remembered. He spoke softly into the wind. You were right, Lyra. The world still needs light. A gentle warmth brushed his cheek, like a hand made of air. He closed his eyes, knowing she was there. For a moment, he thought he heard her voice. Keep walking, Ariane. The world still remembers you. He smiled faintly, then let it remember you too. Weeks passed. Ariane stayed near the village, helping where he could. He rebuilt fences, carried water, and healed the sick with quiet hands. No one knew who he really was. They just called him the Wanderer with the Silver Flower. The villagers grew to love him, though he always kept to himself. But one morning, Era came running toward him, her face pale. Ariane! Riders are coming, soldiers. They wear the mark of the sanctum. He turned toward the hills. Dark figures moved through the snow, carrying banners of white and gold. Thalin's men, he said quietly. But I thought they were gone, Era said, fear in her voice. So did I, he said. Stay inside. Lock your doors. She grabbed his sleeve. What will you do? He smiled faintly. What I must. The soldiers rode into the village, their leader shouting orders. The people hid, trembling. Ariane stood alone in the middle of the path, the wind whipping his cloak. Step aside, stranger, the captain shouted. We're looking for a creature, pale skin, red eyes, cursed by the dark. Ariane's voice was calm. You've already found him. The captain raised his sword. Then may the light judge you. Ariane didn't move. The silver flower glowed faintly in his hand. The snow around him shimmered, then rose in a circle of light. When the soldiers charged, the air itself seemed to stop. Their swords froze mid-swing. Their horses refused to move. Ariane's eyes glowed red for a heartbeat, then softened back to human. I don't want to fight anymore, he said softly. Go home. The men lowered their weapons, fear and confusion in their eyes. The captain trembled. What are you? Ariane looked at him with tired eyes. Someone who finally learned mercy. The soldiers turned and fled. When the snow settled, Era came out from behind the door, her eyes wide. How did you do that? He looked at the flower. She taught me. That night, as the village slept in peace again, Ariane sat by the frozen river. The moonlight reflected off the water, making it look like glass. He placed the silver flower gently on the ice. Your light saved me, he whispered. Now save them. The flower began to glow, its petals opening like a heartbeat. A warm light spread across the river, melting the ice. When the people woke in the morning, they found water flowing again, clear and bright, and the land around it began to thaw. They called it the blessing of the lost king. Spring touched the valley for the first time in many years. The snow melted, the trees bloomed again, and the river sang through the heart of the land. Ariane watched it all from a hill above the village. The sun warmed his skin, something he hadn't felt in a lifetime. Children ran below, chasing each other with laughter. Era stood near the riverbank, helping her father plant seeds. For the first time, the world felt alive again. But Ariane knew what the light meant. His time was ending. He had felt it for days now. His hands, once cold and pale, had begun to warm. His eyes no longer carried the same red glow. The curse that had bound him for centuries was fading. That evening, as the sky turned gold, he walked toward the forest. Era followed him, her steps soft on the grass. You're leaving, aren't you? She asked quietly. He turned to her with a faint smile. Yes. Where will you go? He looked toward the horizon, where she waits. Era's eyes filled with tears. You mean the girl from your stories? He nodded. Lyra? Era held out her hand. Then don't forget us. He took her hand gently. I couldn't forget any of you. She pressed something into his palm, a small wooden charm carved like a bird. For luck, she said. He smiled softly. For hope. The forest was quiet as he walked deeper in. Fireflies drifted through the air. their light soft and golden. When he reached the old ruins of an ancient chapel, he stopped. It was the same place he and Lyra had met on that stormy night long ago. Now, the walls were covered in vines, and the moonlight shone through the cracks like silver rain. He stepped inside and laid the charm beside the stone altar. Then he spoke softly, almost in prayer. "Lyra, if you can hear me." I kept walking. Just like you asked, a breeze moved through the chapel, carrying the scent of wildflowers. He closed his eyes. I tried to bring back what we lost. And now I'm tired. The air shimmered. A soft light appeared before him, gentle, golden, like the first dawn. When it took shape, he saw her, Lyra. She stood there, just as he remembered, her hair flowing softly, her eyes full of light. For a moment, he couldn't move. "Lyra," she smiled, tears glimmering in her eyes. "You kept your promise." He stepped closer. "You came back." "I never left," she whispered. "I was with you through every step." Every breath he reached out, afraid she would vanish, but her hand met his, warm and real. "Is this real?" he asked softly. "It's enough," she said. They stood together in the old chapel, light swirling around them like the breath of the world itself. Arian's heart felt heavy and free all at once. "I don't know what comes next," he said. Lyra looked toward the open door. "Then let's find out together." He smiled, a single tear falling down his cheek. Together. The light grew brighter, wrapping around them. Outside, the villagers saw the sky turn gold for a moment, brighter than any sunrise they'd ever seen. When it faded, the ruins stood empty. Only the silver flower and the small wooden bird lay side by side on the altar. Years later, travelers would come to that place and say they felt peace there, a warmth that healed the heart. They called it the Chapel of the Eternal Dawn. And when the wind passed through the valley, it carried a whisper, soft, like a memory. "Keep walking. The world still remembers you." Decades passed. The village grew into a town, and the town into a city. But no matter how many years went by, people still spoke of the wanderer with the silver flower and the girl of light who healed the broken. Children played near the river that once froze for centuries, now called Lyra's Stream. Farmers blessed their seeds in water from that stream before planting, and when the night grew long, the elders would gather under the stars and tell the story again, how a cursed king found his heart because of love. In the heart of the new city stood a small chapel built from the same stone that once formed the ruins where they vanished. It was simple. No gold, no jewels, only white walls and a small altar. On that altar rested two things, a silver flower that never withered and a wooden bird carved long ago by a village girl. People came from far away to see it. Some came to pray, others just to feel the peace that seemed to live in the air there. They said if you stood in silence long enough, you could hear the sound of footsteps. Two people walking side by side. One day, a little girl named Marin came to the chapel with her mother. She was sick and weak, but her eyes were full of life. "Will the light heal me?" she asked softly. Her mother smiled with tears in her eyes. "It might, if you believe in it." The girl walked up to the altar and touched the silver flower. It glowed faintly under her fingers, just for a moment. Marin gasped. "It's warm." Her mother froze. "What did you feel?" "It felt like—" "Someone smiled at me," the girl whispered. That night, Marin's fever broke. By morning, she was running outside, laughing in the sunlight. Word spread fast. The flower still held its magic, and the people began calling the place the Shrine of the Two Souls. Generations passed, and the story became a legend, told in every corner of the kingdom. They said Arian Valior was once a vampire king who lost everything but found light in a human heart. And Lyra Adric was the girl who gave her life so that even darkness could be healed. Bards sang of them under the moonlight, Lovers left silver flowers by the river to promise forever. And when storms came, the lightning never struck the chapel, as if the heavens still guarded it. But there were those who swore that on certain nights, when the sky was clear and the stars shone bright, you could see two figures walking hand in hand through the valley. One wore a dark cloak that trailed through the grass. The other glowed faintly, her hair shining like light. They never spoke, but the air around them shimmered with peace. And those who saw them said their hearts grew calm, as if the pain of the world had eased for a moment. Time never truly ends for stories like theirs, because love, real love, doesn't fade. Even when the world forgets the names, somewhere beyond the stars, where light meets the edge of night, two souls walk together still, the lost king and the girl who saved him. And the wind carries their promise forever. Even in darkness, we find our way home.